Hi patrons. For this week's Patreon extras, then I decided to focus on some exercises because I already have like 25 different examples in the main lesson. And Steve was also asking for some ideas for how you can work and develop sweep picking. So I thought it would be good to just go over some of the different exercises that I've done for sweep picking and talk a little bit about what to work on in that with that context. Now, when I'm using sweeping, I'm not really using sweep picking, so the huge 5 or 6 string sweeps and stuff. That's just not really a part of my style. It's just not really the sound that I'm going for most of the time. And I find that I don't use sweep picking. I use it really a lot for small sweeps. And I found really along the way that I tend to really pick the techniques that I use from how they sound, the sounds that I get from them, and if it sounds the way that I want it to. Like for instance, at some point I was really developing my alternate picking, and I could alternate pick myself out of a lot of things, but at the same time it didn't really sound the way that I wanted to sound. And then I had to change things and start to use more legato, more also different kinds of legato, and also more sweeping and more economy picking to get it to sound the way that I want it to sound. I think that is something that's really important to keep in mind, that you don't only think about the technique. Of course, you want to develop all the techniques, and I get that, and I do that. But at the same time, that's not the main goal. The main goal is that you find a way to work on this where you're really focusing on getting it to be effective and getting it to sound the way that you want to have it sound. So if you are learning a technique, like for instance the sweep picking here, you need to be conscious of how it sounds and how you want to use it also. And not just to play fast, because that's not a sound. So the thing that you probably want to start with is just to have, like, you want to keep it simple, so you want to keep it 2 or 3 strings in the beginning. Actually, you probably want to keep it, start with 2 and then go to 3, and in that way develop it. The easiest exercise to start with, which is also good for your left hand, is to do something like this. So I'm really just playing G, C, and D, A. And this is also good because I'm rolling with my fingers here, and this is something you need to do a lot with sweeping. And you want to practice this with a metronome. That's also really important, because the most difficult part of sweeping is to keep it really in time and keep it precise. Once you kind of feel comfortable with this, you can move up to playing 3 strings. So do the same thing, but then use 3 strings. And that's of course essentially just playing a C and a D second inversion triad. And again, we get this exercise of doing this, which is useful. From there, well, actually, when you're doing this, you probably realize that there's like one direction that you find easier to do than the other. And that has to do with how you hold the pick and what kind of angle you have the pick in, I think. And I think there, I guess for me, it was always like, this was just really simple. I could always do that. And this was just way more difficult. So for me, it's like, if I want to go descending with a sweep, then that's really easy. And I had to work on getting those to really, you can hear it now. It's like something I kind of just work around it probably half the time because I find it difficult to do. So that's not how I usually will execute arpeggios like that. And I'm much more likely to go. But yeah, it does work sometimes though. What I've seen with my students is that this really changes from student to student, and I think it has mostly to do with like how your right hand is positioned. Notice what is better for you and what is easier for you, and make use of it. And it doesn't, for the rest, it doesn't matter. You can always find other ways of executing similar things. It's just that you're aware of it also, because it may help you choose a better technique for you along the way if you want to find out how to play a certain thing. That's really the thing to notice here. The next exercise I would go to would be to play diatonic 7th chords, and that's really just because those are really a core part of what I want to sweep. So it just makes a ton of sense to work on that. And the easiest way to work on it for sweeping is of course to just keep it kind of predictable for your right hand, and then just move around with your left hand just to get the different shapes in there. So for instance, if I'm playing an F major scale with the diatonic 7th chord, so like F major 7, G minor 7, A minor 7, B flat major 7, and then moving up through that with sweeping, that could be something like this. And what you can maybe also see when I'm sweeping here is that it's not like one completely smooth movement when I'm here. So I am striking each string. It's not a separate movement. I am kind of moving through the strings, but you can tell that there is enough resistance in my strings, and that could be because of the heavy strings. But you can just see on my right hand that it's just moves a little bit uneven when I go through a string, especially when I go up, I guess, or not. No, that doesn't matter. So it's the same both ways, and that's just the way it is for me anyway. And I think sometimes you'll see people who really like do this, and then, but it also influences the sound, and I want to have this work as a sound that fits with like. Something that I can just throw in there and mix with my other techniques and get to sound right. This is really important, right? And that means that there is a little bit some amount of force involved as well. But that's just how that works for me anyway. So I will start with those, just because that's like really core material that you want to do. You can of course do the other versions of it as well, and then try and go, or sorry, never did that, or at least not that I remember. But different versions of those arpeggios where you have the two notes on the. You need to have them on the outer strings, kind of. So either on the highest string or on the lower string. Both are useful to be able to sweep. I mean, the Wes Montgomery thing, where he's of course not. I'm not sure how he actually plays that for right hand, but the easiest way to execute that and get that sound, for me at least, is a sweep. So. That's it. So those kind of things are useful to have in there as well. What else do we have? Then the other exercise I did, of course, once you have it for 3 strings, you can start moving up to do 4 strings as well. It's a lot less useful in jazz somehow, I find, but it is something that I worked on. What I did with that was that I would take 2 triads together and then have one type of triad when I'm going up and another one going down. Let's see if I can still do this. So D minor up, and then A minor first inversion down, and then E diminished, and then B flat first inversion down, F major up, and then C first inversion down, and then that way. Probably when you, and this is something I do remember doing quite a lot actually, just repeating one of them. And that actually goes for any kind of exercise that you're working on where you're moving along the neck. It can be really useful. So just start repeating them. It gets boring if I keep doing it. And that actually goes for also if you're doing stuff with alternate picking. So if you are practicing, let's see, like shell voicings. Then going through each one of them several times, it's just useful just to get used to it for your right hand, and then you're still working with your left hand, but you're just giving it a little bit more time, and you can focus a little bit more on your right hand. The same goes for sweeping. So that will be sort of the things that I would say, start working with those. I'll write some of these out, and then I'll add that to this video, and also as a PDF. You can check it out there. That's kind of how I develop it. And then for the rest, like start with the licks that I had in the main lesson, and also just different ways of using these arpeggios. Like the Wes Montgomery thing is really good. And who else? Benson actually uses quite a lot of sweeps also. I think the way that he plays, probably he has an easier time sweeping ascending, which in some ways is actually easier to use also because we use ascending arpeggios a lot more than we use descending. Especially if you're more sort of bob oriented at least. But yeah, in the end, I don't think that's something to worry too much about. I think it's more about figuring out like how it works for you and then using that. That's what's really going to make the difference. So I hope that helps a bit. If you have any questions on this, if you want to see more, I mean, it's always fine if you guys have questions that are not directly about the stuff in the lesson. Of course, with the 25 exercises, like the amount of topics were a little bit all over the place. But so then it's all. But this is always okay that if you guys have questions about something else, just ask them. I can easily do this in the Patreon extras. And that doesn't really matter to me. Like David was asking about some minor 2/5 voicings. So that's definitely something to take up at some point. Maybe it would be useful to do that in a week where I'm anyway doing something with chords. But I mean, there's always a chords video coming up. So just keep asking, and then we'll get there. Yeah. So thank you for your support. And of course, this was late because of a lot of things. Because I'm still just playing a lot of stuff. I actually practiced for the big band and shot a vlog thing. At least I hope I can turn it into that, like a few videos of me talking about how I'm practicing for that big band concert that I played yesterday. And I need to edit it. And everything got delayed a little bit because my editor was ill, and then all of a sudden I needed to edit the video that I published yesterday. That just threw everything. Also because that's also why the chord melody arrangement got released today and not Friday. That was actually the plan, but I just didn't have time to edit the lesson, so I did that today, and now it's up. And I'll probably edit this now also, and then put that up, so that's all done, and then I can work on something else. But yeah, sometimes life's just busy, and then there's lots of stuff happening, and it's good. I mean, I think it's also good for me to do the concerts, even though they sometimes get a little bit in the way, especially now it's kind of busy. But yeah, it's also, I mean, I am a guitar player, so when I actually use that, then I probably also make better videos in the long run. So yeah, that's how that goes. For the rest, any questions, just shoot here on Patreon or send me an email or something like that, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you for your support.